Today I'm here with Miss Daisy, and we're here to unpack a lot of stuff. Bibliophiles of the internet, my name's Adriana, and after loving the Netflix adaptation, I gave To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han a second chance. Unless you've been around since I started, you may not know that I read and reviewed To All the Boys I've Loved Before in the year of our Lord 2014, which is a serious throwback. I checked it out from my library, really enjoyed it, but ultimately decided that I didn't love it and would most likely drop the series because one book was enough, I felt. But I really love the way this story translated on screen, which could very well be attributed to some revisions that were made to make the story tighter, but it made me think maybe I should go back and see how I feel about the book now. And the more I reflected on these two very different reading experiences, the more interesting I thought it was to see how your ideas can evolve as time passes, and maybe just being in a different place or a different headspace can give you a different perspective. So this video is going to be like a fusion of self-reflection and your typical book review content. For those of you who don't know, To All the Boys I've Loved Before is an own voices YA contemporary romance about Laura Jean, and every time she gets over a major crush, she pours all her feelings into a love letter for that person to gain a sense of closure. She writes them, seals them, addresses them, and hides them away in a hat box. Well, one day those letters, which are supposed to be secret, accidentally get mailed out to all her past crushes, including the charming popular guy Peter Kavinsky and longtime family friend and also recent ex to her older sister, Josh. Since Peter was also just dumped by his girlfriend, he finds his letter from Laura Jean to be fortuitous, and he proposes that they pretend to date in order to make Josh and his ex jealous, which in turn reignites Laura Jean's old feelings. So suddenly Laura Jean's social life, which could once be called non-existent, is now exploding with romance and complications to boot. Now let's sort of contextualize the headspace I was in the first time I read this book. Something you have to understand about me is that I was super deep in the YA contemporary romance game growing up, especially in my teens. Like, I was raised on Meg Cabot's books and all other books like that. I read them and I reread them and I reread them again, and it was just extremely formative. So when 2014 rolls around, I'm in that place where I'm like, I've seen it all. I've read all the things. It's also hard to resist falling into the literary elitism trap where you think, well, I enjoy romance, but there are better books. Better being this elusive, mercurial, vague descriptor of a standard largely outlined by someone else. Which is strange to me because enjoyment is actually a really important factor in the reading experience. And I think it's really interesting whose enjoyment and what kind of enjoyment we value the most. Now, I'm not saying I've ever actually subscribed to literary elitism, but I think I might have been in a place where I was trying to move away from romance to branch out, which is not a bad thing, but I do think I forgot my roots and I forgot what I love about romance in the process. Because I was watching the movie, and when I saw that there was fake dating, I sat up straighter in my chair because I had somehow totally repressed that and blocked that out when I wrote off the series. Which is baffling to me because the fake dating trope is actually the key to my heart. It's the reason why I live. So now in the year of our Lord 2018, I feel like I'm finally coming back to romance. I feel like I'm in a place where I'm finally reading romance as an act of feminism, as an act of resistance, and most importantly, as an act of empowerment. Honestly, there's so much to unpack because I also feel like I've stayed away from reading books that are full-on romance as opposed to books that just have romantic subplots because I'm a romantic. And as someone who does not engage with, experience, or value romance personally, I think subconsciously I told myself it was not my space. And now I realize that those limitations I set upon myself are just lies. So why do I call reading romance an act of empowerment? Well, because now more than ever, investing yourself in stories that have happy endings, stories where characters of all identities find validation and people who understand and value them, stories where people are learning to communicate what they need and want in order to form meaningful and satisfying relationships, stories where people obtain happiness they define for themselves, is a radical act. Stories that explicitly center hope and potential and happiness and love are punk as fuck. And there's nothing lowbrow or less about it. That's kind of how I was able to key into rereading this book and reopening that previously closed door, because I'm finally embracing that and I'm more in tune with the tropes I enjoy, because fun fact, tropes are not bad things, especially in romance. I think there's a false correlation between the idea of tropes and something that is overused and therefore automatically bad, when tropes are just a narrative shorthand for character types, character dynamics, or even plot points. And when you know what kind of tropes you find interesting, what kind of tropes you like seeing writers play around with, you're just customizing your reading experience and pinpointing books you're more likely to enjoy. It's part of knowing yourself. And To All the Boys plays with a lot of fun tropes. They're not all my favorite, but I think they're fairly well done. Just to run through a few, it plays with love triangles, fake dating, dating contract, friends to lovers, protagonist with a single dad, first love, happily ever after / happy for now, and will they, won't they. Interestingly, when I reread this, I actually felt like the love triangle was okay. There was more of a balance than I anticipated, which kind of makes me feel like Laura Jean's conflicted feelings actually make sense. I mean, in the movie, Peter just bulldozes over Josh. It's so obviously one-sided. To me, movie Josh was the worst, most annoying, most unnecessary love interest, and that was probably because his backstory was extremely condensed. But every time he came on screen, I was like, who is this bitch baby, and what can I do to make him go away? Upon rereading the book, you see more of how closely Josh is tied to Laura Jean's family, how long he's been in their lives, how genuine their friendship is, and how easy it is for Laura Jean to conflate that with romantic love, and how he is not someone she should necessarily write off. I still think she and Peter have a stronger relationship because he's the one she's pretending to date, he's the one she's spending time with, and everything with Peter feels like discovering something new. There's that added layer of complexity where she thought she was over him, she thought she could forget he was her first kiss, but then she's experiencing all these firsts with him, like first time holding a boy's hand in the hallway, that are reawakening her feelings. So I think that's an interesting twist, that they're not just pretending because it's convenient, but because it's a safe way to explore their feelings without having anything at stake, or so they think. So I felt like the playing field for Laura Jean was a little more even in the book, and I do suspect that the reason why this story takes 3 books to tell is because there's going to be more back and forth, but I still feel like the end game is fairly obvious, and I'm okay with it. I still love the family dynamic we get to see front and center and how that's explored in this book. You really get a sense of how Laura Jean and her sisters became closer after their mother passed away, how they found a way to work together in order to help their dad, how they took on certain roles and are now trying to move away from those roles or evolve. And I love Laura Jean's dad, how involved he is in his daughter's lives and the easy affection he has for his girls. Especially in YA, where absentee parents and authority figures are rampant, it's still refreshing to see a parent who is so present in their kids' lives. And it cannot be overstated how important it is to see Own Voice's Korean American representation, especially when it comes to showing who is desirable, who is worthy of love, and who we are readily able to accept as a love interest. Looking back on when this book was first published, it was kind of ahead of the curve, and I've always loved how the story upholds that representative element. It's not just that Laura Jean is Korean American, but that there's an exploration of what it's like to be biracial, what it was like for her father trying to figure out how to incorporate their Korean culture into their lives after their mom's death, and how he didn't take it upon himself to teach them everything there is to know or act like the authority on the subject, but how he made a point to keep access to those connections alive. And there's also a bit of commentary on how well-behaved Asian girls always come second best, third best, fourth best. There's a really great moment when the story starts where Peter just got Laura Jean's letter and he's trying to let her know he's not interested in her, and he keeps saying stuff like, "You're cute in a quirky way," or "You're a funny girl, Laura Jean," and she's like, "Stop. I know what you're really saying when you say that." So you see the story taking on how Laura Jean is absolutely worthy of having a whirlwind romance herself. She has to step outside her comfort zone and take risks, but she's always been worthy of that. I think that's what I like most, is that this fake relationship starts out as a means to make Josh forget what she wrote. It starts off as a way to prove something to Peter, that she isn't the quiet goody two-shoes who always toes the line, but in the end, really, she's surprising herself and proving something to herself. In my original review, I talked about how there wasn't a distinct sense of place, and I would actually stand by that. Any setting-related details in this story were cursory at best. Like, we have stock images where we're in a house, we're at a school, we're in a restaurant, but you don't really feel the importance or weight of those places. This is something I think was addressed better in the film because the settings and backdrops were really distinctive. Laura Jean's bedroom, the track where Laura Jean and Peter make their contract, the corner cafe, the ski lodge, all of that served to heighten the story, and it was brought to life. This time I think I was able to impose those visuals from the film into the story, which made me enjoy it slightly more, but I still think that was missing from the book. The second time around I was also more responsive to the writing style. I found it to be funny, witty, insightful, and there were some genuinely hilarious, flirtatious moments between characters, and I think there are memorable moments. The style is wistful, fun, and full of optimism, so where the writing is concerned, I happily redact that critique. Something else I feel like I didn't get to mention before is that the story also has a really great balance. There are some really strong emotional beats, but there's also like really fun romantic shenanigans, and I'm definitely here for both of those things. In fact, that may be even more heightened and displayed in the film, which of course is A+, and I highly recommend watching it in case that wasn't like super obvious. I feel like I finally realized that even though it's not a perfect story by any means, it's full of stuff I deeply value and gravitate towards, and this time I was in a place where I was more open to that. It happens. So overall, I enjoyed this more with the second read. I amend my 3 or 3.5 star rating to a hearty 4 stars, and now I am definitely open to reading the rest of the series. Let me know in the comments, have you ever given a book or a genre a second chance and had a better experience? I would love to discuss. Also, feel free to just come cry about the film with me, because all I want to do is like shut myself in and watch it like 50 million more times. But that's everything I had for this discussion/review today. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it, and I will catch you on the flip side of the page. Bye! Miss Daisy also says bye because she has places to go and naps to take.